Kyle, you're the best. Thank you so much for being here.
I don't know about that, but I'm happy to be here.
So last year on this stage, you had just taken over as the CEO of Verizon Business. Since then, you've signed some really cool contracts with the NFL and the NHL, and some really important ones with the Cleveland Clinic and the Port of Virginia.
Yes.
So how's Verizon's 5G rollout going?
Well, first, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure. We continue to roll out. We continue to roll out quickly. We're doing it faster than we thought we would with the C-band rollout. We're probably about 9 months ahead or so of our game plan. But we continue we still have a lot to go, especially in rural areas. But for my group, what I'm happy about is the applications that we're putting on top of the network. So you had a whole list right there. And it just goes to show you the breadth and depth of who we're working with. We're working with sports leagues and teams to help them improve not only their on-field performance, but also help them with their back of the office operations. It's all going wireless because it's easier for them to operate. When that happens, we're in healthcare with hospitals. Obviously, there's a lot of technology in hospitals and trying to take costs out of that. And so we're working with the healthcare industry, not only like the Cleveland Clinic, but also the VA, working with them on new technologies that are based on 5G. And also we just had the general here working with DoD. We're working with DoD on how we can have partnerships between our industry and the DoD to help them drive cost out of their system and more, let's say, more utility, more usability between the technology they have and the commercial ride we wave in terms of cost. So there's a lot of folks working on solutions that are going to ride over 5G, and we're excited about that.
So I'm not going to ask you to play favorite among your customers, but what is the solution that excites you the most?
They're all different, because what excites me the most is what excites me the most is I'm being surprised by who can utilize this. We actually, all the way from, we've been working with a farmer who has a problem with, he owns they grow tulips. And so everybody comes once or twice a year, and it's a huge, huge farm, and he needs his point of sale to work all throughout the farm. And I would never think of that in a million years. When you're doing your business case to spend this amount of money on spectrum, you never think that, hey, tulips is a big thing. But that all the way to the highest tech stuff you can think of in DoD or within healthcare, and things that require a lot of bandwidth, really high, low latencies, and really high reliability. And it's great because it pushes us to think more and innovate more, and that's how I think we all get better for our company and for the whole wireless industry.
Well, tulips is one of my favorite flowers. So
come on up to Jersey, we'll get you.
Yes, perfect, perfect. So let's go to America's leadership, because I think 4G was so important to our economy and how we really led. Now we're in 5G. Obviously, we're in the 5G decade. What do you see as far as the 5G role for securing our leadership globally?
Actually, there's a couple things there, because obviously I was around for 4G. And people think 4G, when we put that platform out there, was like an immediate success. Like all great things sprung forth like 2 days after we deployed the network.
18 years?
It didn't work that way, huh?
18 years at Verizon?
Me? No, since day one, or before that, 35.
Oh, well, there you have it.
So, 1G, IMTS, for those of you who remember that. But there was a lot of tangential technologies that needed to come in before really LTE kind of took off. And I'm starting to see that now with 5G. We're in the early innings. All the carriers are deploying it. Now we start seeing it's getting more ubiquitous. You start seeing more people develop into it. And really the benefits technology brings to some of these customers is exciting. One thing I'm really excited about is some of the private network work we're doing, and then how we can enable our customers to run their operations, whether it be in a warehouse or a port with containers coming in and out, or a tulip farm or what have you. It's exciting to see that they're embracing the possibility, and we have POCs that we're doing as well as paying customers, and I start seeing the momentum. And that's, as a kind of technology person, that's what excites me. People starting to see what the capabilities are.
Yeah, private networks really are the wave these days. Let's transfer over to cybersecurity, because I think 5G has a big role in making all of us more secure, and goodness knows there's a new cyber threat every day. What are some of the concerns you're hearing, and how is 5G helping to solve that?
Cyber is a big, broad kind of topic. We actually just, for those of you into cyber, we just released our DBIR report, which is a report we put out every year, I think 17 years in a row from Verizon. We investigate over 30,000 incidents, and the world's always evolving. So if you haven't seen that, go online and you can get that from us. There's a lot of great insight in there that we're willing to share with folks. But 5G specifically, when it was being architected, it was being architected in a way that could use the latest and greatest technology to advance security in that G. I mean, if we'll go back, well, you want to say how old I am, might as well go back all the way to 1G when we had, maybe many of you remember cloning fraud, because we were sending everything in a clear, right? And now where we've come in terms of what we can do with the newest and latest techniques with cyber is fantastic. AI could help us, but AI can also be a threat. We worry a lot about if, it used to take a certain amount of expertise to be a good hacker, and if you can use AI to help you out, people will be doing that and they'll be leveraging it. So that adds a whole nother complexity to things. But just fundamentally, the technology of 5G really ups the game for the wireless industry.
It does. It does. Well, you said AI.
I didn't mean to. Sorry.
It does. Oops.
It happens every time.
Made me so surprised I threw my cards. So I do think. What sort of examples do you think AI will have in our networks?
For us, there's two ways we're looking at it. We're looking at it both in terms of how does it help us, manage our operation. So really kind of back of the house stuff like, and this is kind of obvious, things that help with customer service. How do we get better insights into our customers? How do you propensity, what a customer may do? All the techniques and models that we're building help us serve our customers better. So that's good. That can help you drive efficiencies, right? But also, how are we setting up our networks, not only in wireless, but in wireline and our enterprise networks? How do we architect them over the next few years to make it easy for our customers to really use AI and make it simpler for them? The CIOs I talk to, they're really focused on how can they leverage AI to really make their operations work better. And before they focus on our networks. We say, don't worry about it. We'll take care of the network for you. You worry about your AI. But then the other thing, we use AI for our networks in terms of digital. We have digital twins of our networks. So it's really a fascinating area where things keep evolving. But what we find funny as well is it's kind of gotten pretty hot over the last year when the OpenAI and the Gen stuff came out and became, consumers can look at it. We've been using AI and evolving it for a long, long time. So, but now it's all the hype, and we're figuring out how we can leverage the technology to help further our business and our customers. So
that's innovation, and one thing that's going to help us with this innovation is, of course, licensed spectrum.
Yes.
So it's obviously critical to 5G, and I think since we spoke last, we've got the national spectrum strategy, but not that much has really changed from last year. What do we need to do here in Washington to make sure Verizon can continue to innovate?
Well, the spectrum is the lifeblood of our industry. And without it, there's no R&D. Nobody's going to put money into R&D to come up with new things for mobility. And right now, we spent a lot of money on spectrum as an industry over the last few years, and we're putting it to work. And we're putting it to work in good use cases. People ask me about the killer app for 5G. I think we have one going right now. Fixed wireless access in the industry has given consumers a lot of choice. Hundreds of millions of customers a lot of choice in places where they might have only had one cable provider. Now they have choice with a wireless service, and we're seeing good traction as an industry. As a matter of fact, I think it's the last 3 or 4 quarters, wireless has taken 100% of market share of broadband, and that just shows there's a need. And because we had enough spectrum, we were able to fill that need. Listen, we were getting a lot of state, local, federal people asking us, how come you don't get in the game? But before C-band or millimeter wave, there wasn't enough spectrum to do it. And now that we do, we're out there and we're making a difference. And I think that's good for consumers, good for the economy, et cetera. But then, that's one bit. Then we're working with DoD, and we're working on a bunch of different use cases. And right now we're okay. But I just worry if we don't put a plan in place, a comprehensive plan for the next decade or so, we're going to fall behind. And we have a track record in the industry of living hand to mouth with spectrum. And I just feel we could do a lot better as a country if we can get a 10, 15-year plan in place that has deterministic ways of when spectrum will be available. That way people will invest money in R&D, and we can maintain our leadership in the world in this regard. So for me, it's more about the longer term and setting a plan in place. And while there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years, not a lot has happened. So I'm hoping industry and the powers that be can come together, and we can figure out a way to get something that's really meaningful on the table and get it through, and so we can all start investing and working on it.
Well, as we look at the National Spectrum Strategy, we're looking at lower 3, we're looking at 7, 8. What are the things that are really important? Would it be full power?
Yeah, absolutely. No, but actually, just knowing what is going to happen and not having to try and guess. So, and if it's determined and we can invest and invent along with that, I think that's most important. Yeah, but full power. Listen, we're working along with everybody else on DSS. People talk about it as it's going to be the savior. We don't believe that. We believe there could be something there. So why not? We turn over every rock. We'll look at that. But really, what's going to carry the day? And I think if you ask both sides of the fence on this thing, you ask engineers, they'll tell you the best, most efficient use is purpose, spectrum, full power, and then you can design into that and make the most of the spectrum. So I'm hoping that that gets front billing, not so much the DSS. We like that. We'll work with it. But at the end of the day, we think it's going to really take full power, purpose spectrum to really move the needle.
So you teach me all the time because you are technical, and I think what you're saying here is really important. So full-powered licensed spectrum is the gold standard.
Absolutely.
How should we think about dynamic spectrum sharing and its feasibility today?
We actually use it today, but here's a good example. Look at it. We always look at it from a customer's perspective. So we go sell private network or some service to a customer who needs 99, they need 5 nines, reliability for what they're doing. And that's super important for their operation. How do I go sell them a service and say, well, it'll work now, but it might not work tomorrow, or we're going to need to degrade you sometime? Nobody's going to invest and put their critical operation on that. It becomes like no better than Wi-Fi. So it needs to be licensed, it needs to be for a purpose, and the purposes can vary, frankly, but it needs to be for a purpose, and then you can optimize that spectrum for the capacity that you need. If you look at, we've been great stewards of spectrum since day one, always because we're trying to get as much capacity, as many bits through that pipe as we possibly can. Look at how much innovation in wireless has come out of this industry as a result of trying to be really, really efficient. So we've done our part. We'd like others to do their part too, and see if there's some spectrum that can get freed up.
I think that's an important point, is spectral efficiencies, and I think sometimes people don't realize how much you have repurposed your spectrum and how much you actually have squeezed out of the spectrum holdings you have.
Well, it's not sexy, but we spend a lot of time working on bits per hertz. So how much can we muscle through? And all the way from analog to now to keep on going. And you look at all things that we've come up with going digital, different coding schemes we've come up with over the years, use of massive MIMO. There's tens and hundreds of technology innovations that this industry has spearheaded to get more and more out of the spectrum.
Because the data usage is so increasing.
Absolutely, it's not slowing down. Our customers continue to demand more. The more and more people innovate on it and come up with new ways to use it, and I just think probably AI and those kind of things will maybe increase it. So our job is to get a platform out there that people can put their services on, and but then that means we need to push the technology envelope, but we also need to, what I say, the spectrum is really the lifeblood, so we need to push for that too. And I worry if we don't have that, then it's going to come to a slowdown here.
So I think that's really also another important point is that spectrum takes a long time to come to market. So when you look at the demand on your network and you look at things like AI that are really increasing the data on these networks, what do you think Washington needs to do?
I think what'll happen is if we don't get, we'll be forced to make choices, right, as an industry. And the choices will be like we had to make choices years ago. If we had enough spectrum, like when DSL was coming out and low bandwidth things, we could have been a fixed wireless player then. But we had to make a choice. We didn't have enough spectrum, so we had to choose mobility only. And I worry that having us have to make those choices will stifle the innovation that we can continue to drive through this industry, which has been so great for this country. And I don't think those choices will be beneficial for the United States. I understand on the other side, there's choices too, but that's why we need to come together and we need to work. But I just worry that this industry will slow down if we don't have the lifeblood that really keeps us moving.
So it's global competitiveness.
Absolutely, 100%.
And that's what you see in the rest of the world as well?
Absolutely, because you see other places around the world, they have a game plan. And they're running their playbook. And we need to make our playbook. I guess that's how I would say it. We need a playbook right now.
That is words of wisdom. Any closing thoughts?
No, I appreciate all you guys coming and showing up here, and thank you for having me. And let's continue the work to make sure we can keep this industry the great innovation and dynamic industry that it is for this great country. Okay.
Great conversation. Thank you, Kyle.
All right, awesome. Thank you.